Welcome to another episode of Start the Week with Wisdom. I'm your host, Bridget Burns with the University Innovation Alliance.
And I am Sara Custer, Editor-in-Chief at Inside Higher Ed.
Each week we team up with a person in the field who is a leader that we think you should be listening to. And today that is more true than ever before. We're super excited to bring you this conversation on a Monday, reflecting on decades of wisdom and experience and impact, which is really hopeful and optimistic for us all to gather that on a Monday. That's why we call it Start with the Week with Wisdom.
That's right. And this show is broadcast on the Innovating Together podcast, which is sponsored by the Andrew Carnegie Foundation.
Yeah, new name.
I like it.
Yeah. And also their explanation of why. I was like, yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah. Confusing.
Yeah. Well, today's guest is Karen Stout, who's been the president and CEO of Achieving the Dream, the nation's largest non-governmental reform network dedicated to community college student success. She's been there since 2015. She helped transform ATD from a small nonprofit into a powerhouse organization whose network now spans more than 300 community colleges and tribal colleges, reaching over 500 open access institutions nationwide. And we are so lucky to have Karen on Weekly Wisdom with us because she will soon be leaving to climb higher mountains, I think is how you termed it, Karen.
Yeah, well, I think I said my next climb. Thank you, Sara. Thank you, Bridget. Yeah, my next climb.
We didn't want to miss the opportunity. Tomorrow is your last day at Achieving the Dream before you transition. And you have done such an incredible job there, but you've also modeled for leaders how to set an organization up for transition with like a 6-month transition for the new president and CEO, just really intentional. You've also been such a incredible friend and collaborator for me. I'm going to miss having you there, but I also know that you found someone who's also going to be a great friend and collaborator. And again, that's like the ultimate model of leadership and stewardship is not just what you do while you're here, but how you make it so that the place is so much better and the field is so much better. And I feel like there's no one better than you to have done that. So thank you so much for your work on behalf of higher ed. But thanks for spending one of your last days with us. We're super excited about it.
I'm excited too.
So this is an interesting moment. I'm sure you're plenty of reflection. I'm sure you're a million hanging chads before you head out. I just want to give you an opportunity because so few reach the milestone that you've reached and have earned this kind of what I'm sure has been a lot of look back at capturing all of the work and all of the learning and insights. And so we just want to ask you to reflect on kind of where you are today and looking back on your career, what you're proudest of.
You know, there's so many moments that are in my mind that I'm proud of. But I think what I'm most proud of is that I've had an influence in everywhere I've been on helping people to think differently about what is possible. And that, I think, has really materialized at Achieving the Dream. You know, I was at Montgomery County Community College outside of Philadelphia for 15 years as a president. And what I would say there is that I learned that community colleges are really good at shaping the future of the communities that they sit within, and that success really for community colleges is determined by taking the form of the community that they're in, but also by how they do shape that future. And I feel like at Montgomery, there was this synergy between student success and the focus on student success. My first exposure to Achieving the Dream was at Montgomery. We came into the network in 2006 and eventually earned the Leah Meyer Austin Award, which I was really proud of. But I also learned about what I call leveraging your localness, that is the secret sauce of community colleges. And I feel like coming to Achieving the Dream, that's what I anchored 11 years of our own transformation in, that mindset that student success and completion, yes, important, And we needed to look at our data in new ways and own that data. But also we had to situate that and contextualize it within the context of our local communities. And that the metric of completion alone is not the measure of success. It's extended, not just to mobility. I know we're focusing a lot on mobility now in our sector, but also in how did the community change because the community college is in that community. 80% of our students live and work in our communities. So, that well-being and the workforce alignment in our communities is really important. So I'm proud of that. You mentioned the succession, the work at ATD on transition and this idea of succession and transition. And they're two different things in some cases. That there was a work plan in my mind with our board for the last several years that I made a commitment that ATD, when I handed off, would be stronger than what I inherited. And that was really important to me. And I feel like we've achieved that. And it was a co-design. I hope to have some time to write about it at some point, but I'm very proud of it because ATD has indeed been a work in progress, as you know. The perhaps the biggest accomplishment is one that I don't think I can take much credit for, and that was the transformative investment from MacKenzie Scott in Achieving the Dream. That $20 million unrestricted, addition to an organization that had no reserves, had a 1.4 operating ratio, which means that's how much cash we had, 1.4 month operating ratio, how much cash we had to meet payroll, to now being a thriving organization because of that unrestricted investment that really changed the course of the organization. And that I'm very, very proud of.
Wow. Yeah, that's so, thank you. Others should pick up on that. And especially I love because you don't have a dog in the fight, right? In terms of that, looking for more, but your ability to reflect back on that. I do hope you do write about that because I do think as much as there has been a trickling of narrative of, oh yeah, we're going to invest in operating and capacity. No, you're not. No, actually,
you can't sustain it. And when you do, you can't sustain it. So you get incremental gains, but they're not transformative gains.
But
funders
are
yes, it's a big lesson. Yes, big lesson.
And was that, Karen, I wonder, did you have that knowledge and that that kind of thinking in-house, or did you go out and find someone to help you figure that out?
The MacKenzie Scott gift dropped out of the sky. So, but once we had the gift, I think the way that our board accepted it and has managed it has been extraordinary. And we did that in-house. We did that. I have an extraordinary board. It includes presidents, but it includes also bankers and people outside the higher ed sector, which I think makes it quite special. So we immediately decided we would invest half of it in a somewhat of a quasi endowment, and we have a whole spending strategy. It helps underwrite gen ops that never get reimbursed from philanthropy. Most indirect costs is 15%. You can't cover an organization and have it thrive with that. So it was strategic that would come in and offset those deficits that we had. But at the same time, we took about $5 million and reinvested that into our network. So it's regenerative. We brought under-resourced colleges into Achieving the Dream with Scott dollars. So you think about the ripple effect of that investment. And then we set the other $5 million aside to help us build our own organizational capacity so that we could be agile and quick and speedy in responding to what we saw the capacity needs of our colleges being.
Yeah.
I've seen the big picture, but like if you went to ATD, and I did the first year, I remember meeting you when you first, your first dinner, and what it has become, and going to Dream and seeing how many, like a global audience of, it's not just the United States, it's institutions around the world, and how much our work has been informed by like I literally was just writing a grant application where I was like Achieving the Dream has modeled, because you really have been such an exemplar of how to drive broad collective change, and done it in such a way that is such a very clear evolution from what you showed up with. I could not underscore enough how different things are. And I love that you're speaking to not just the receipt of the gift, but the intentional strategy to spend, because I know some nonprofit leaders who've gotten that gift, their boards don't always have that same level of foresight. So thanks for that. But so what has been, I think, as you think about your role as a leader, what has changed your thinking over this time? Is there a lesson, experience, or failure that really shaped you?
Oh, I think watching the way transformation is taking hold at our colleges and supporting that transformation in a very methodical, strategic way around different frameworks to organize it. There have been many that have come and go. I've learned a lot from that. And I think as I think about the next climb for community colleges, especially, what I've learned from the last decade of studying reform is that we need to compress the time between knowing and doing. We can no longer, the big lesson, this is a meta lesson. We bring colleges into the network and we say, oh, it takes 5 to 7 years to see improvements. That's based on what we know about how long it takes to begin to see the numbers shift. And I don't think we can say 5 to 7 years anymore. Every time we bring a college in and we say 5 to 7 years, we're leaving hundreds of thousands of students behind and their communities behind. And there's enough now in the research. When I started at Montgomery, and now even in my time at ATD, there was not a lot of research on community colleges. Think about Community College Research Center, and I've been on their board for 20 years. I'll be leaving their board now, but I was on their board as a college president, on their board as president of Achieving the Dream. There's a lot of research now that colleges do not have to replicate on their own. They can look at national research like early momentum metrics, like the emerging metrics on mobility, and if they have the ability to understand the implications of the national data on their local practice, they can move fast. And we need to figure out ways to support colleges in moving faster. Now, of course, that requires another look at what capacities are required to build to move fast. So digital transformation, data empowerment. I think about our institutional capacity assessment capacities. But think about a world with AI, digital transformation, all this normed research where you don't have to do the pilot experimentation anymore. You can adopt quickly. You just have to know what you have to put in place to adopt. So it's a different kind of conversation, even for an organization like Achieving the Dream that's doing capacity building with our colleges. So that's really changing my thinking. I'm doing a lot of thinking about that. I'm also doing a lot of thinking about, and this goes back to my time as a community college president, conversations I have with leaders right now that are community college presidents, on how we center teaching and learning in the redesign process, because we're leaving faculty on the margins of reform. We continue to. That's a blind spot that we need to overcome. So that's another lesson. And seeing colleges that have brought faculty into the middle of reform that are able to move faster is something that has helped to shape or change my thinking. And even thinking about new models of shared governance and, just the way that we bring faculty into the work.
Wow. A meaty answer. I love it. Moving much more quickly. I think that's been an eternal criticism of higher education, but whenever you say it, it makes total sense, because the world is just moving faster and more quickly. So of course it makes sense that institutions need to respond to that as best they can. So I love that. And then also, bringing faculty more in the fold is even more critical right now as we're trying to respond with urgency to some of the issues and the challenges that institutions are facing. And yeah, shared governance, maybe that's something we can discuss in our coffee another time, Karen, but it's something I'm hearing a lot across the sector, and certainly something hopefully that can shift and change along with how our institutions are.
And I can just say, like, again, having known you, I can see how much reflection you have done as you wrapped up in your remarks. I'm like, this is why I'm glad connecting you two. I'm like, I can hear a million op-eds coming out. I'm like,
Yes.
This is the level of candor and clarity that the field needs. And yes, I see it. I see that this reflective period as you wrapped up, it's very evident.
I wanted to ask just a little bit, any advice you have for higher education leaders and what you hope they take to heart?
Yeah, I guess there are a couple of things. I think we always talk to our colleges. We always see that colleges that start to move are the colleges that stop fighting with their data. So they kind of own it. And I would say I'd give the same advice to leaders in the future. Own your data.
Yeah.
As the value conversation continues to evolve, I think just stepping into that conversation and owning your data gets you past the defensiveness that's preventing us from, I think, gaining the public influence that we need as a sector. And then I'd also say that leaders need now more than ever to set priorities, and that sounds really easy, but I'll reframe that to mean moving forward with innovation with intention rather than innovation through invention, which helps you then to focus your innovation around your priorities and to go deep in the areas that you need to go deep in, and almost prototype that. I'm going to go deep here. And I know that, and my theory of change is that if I go deep here, then this will happen. And if that happens, then this will happen. And thinking more about innovation that way than chasing shiny objects. And it's really hard for presidents to feel like they're making a difference when they prioritize and go deep, because the results aren't always real clear. It's easy to say, oh, I'm in this test bed, I got this grant, I'm in this, I have this grant, I'm doing this. Yes, I'm involved in all of these initiatives, but I really don't understand how they all connect together, but we're having great success. So, understanding that prioritization and invention through intention, I think is really important.
Can you just say a little bit more, Karen, about owning your data? What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, I think in the community college space, we have presidents that will, completion data, they're pretty much owning now. That's been, that's a decade-long shift. But if I'm talking to a community college president and I ask, what are your bachelor's degree completion rates after 6 years? There's more hesitancy to own that data. And if we're really going to think about completion as not the end, but a progression metric, then we have to care about what our students do when they transfer and if they get the bachelor's degree. So, you start to share that data with a president and a college community, and they'll say, well, we can't control this, this, and this. Well, I'd like to say, shift your mindset. I think there are more things that we can influence, maybe not control, but influence and guide than what we take credit for.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially in this space, I think community colleges and community college leaders have a lot more credibility than ever. This is the moment to really leverage that credibility.
Wow.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Bridget. Sorry.
I would just, I know we have to wrap because you have a million people who want to thank you for the work that you've done. We always end on the best advice that someone's given you, if there is any reflection there, but I just want to say thank you so much as not just a partner in the field who sees the effect of your work on a daily basis, but also as a friend. You've been always a constant. You're the person who I know I could call and you would lay it to me straight and give me the actual tea. And I will not, and that's rare and it's important. And I know that's true, by the way, for so many others who are in the Scaling Partners Network and beyond, others feel the exact same way I do. We're all very fond of you and very grateful for everything you've done. So all that to say, girl, you deserve to do whatever you want to do. We're better for it. But if there's any the advice that most impacted you in your career.
No, I'll say two things. One is look at competency and skill acquisition over title acquisition. That advice helped me get to a college presidency and to ATD. And the second is making sure that your life view and your work view are aligned. And that's really important right now in this moment.
Perfect way to end. So thank you, Karen Stout, for everything. So grateful for you giving us this last bit of wisdom in the last few days. And so those at home, you got to hear from a legend, and we look forward to finding out what you do next. But we're excited to see.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Take care.
Speak to you soon.
Take care.